JOANN returns to bankruptcy court. We are going over the latest. Welcome to Sewing Report Live. I'm Jen. I cover news and I do commentary on what is going on in the world of sewing and crafts. There's a few new things in regard to the JOANN Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Yes, it is their second one. There was another hearing in Delaware. We're going to go over everything I learned from sitting in on the hearing. Plus, there's a couple new things that I think you should know about. A quick disclaimer before we get started. I am not an attorney and this is not official legal analysis. Also, these videos are unscripted and there's going to be pretty minimal editing. I'm not a perfect speaker. Keep that in mind. And yes, this channel does have commentary, so if that's not for you, that's cool. I know all the stores are closed, but now it seems like they're wrapping up some loose ends and trying to figure out what to do with the old JOANN brick and mortar stores. So they've been trying to find new businesses to take over the old leases. JOANN does appear to have, I think most, if not all of the locations were rented. They did not own the real estate. So they've been finding other retailers to fill that space. JOANN does have a few different law firms representing them in the whole bankruptcy proceedings. Also, in my last video, I just covered, actually my last few videos, I've been covering the new lawsuit filed on behalf of several of the JOANN vendors, and it's against several JOANN executives. So if you want to check out those videos, there's some pretty interesting tidbits. All right, so the first thing that I've been going through some of the court documents and whatnot, and I happened to find this, and JOANN has dropped some actual numbers on the sale. So this is the balance sheet for May, the end of May 2025. So you can actually see some of the money. So I was like, interesting. So total assets for JOANN stores, $700 million. JOANN.com, $74 million. You can see they've got a few other properties. They've got Creative Bug, $11.4 million. Not much in the Ditto, and we're going to get to, Ditto Patterns, $769,000. There is a little bit of news with Ditto Patterns that we're going to get to, and they've got a couple other companies like JOANN Holdings, Weave Up, not sure what some of these things are, but JOANN did have quite a few different, companies. It was kind of, made up of a bunch of different organizations within the organization. So this is interesting. You can actually see how much money they have. So I was like, oh. So here's their profit and loss sheet for May. So you can see JOANN stores. All right, so Creative Bug, net income. Okay, I think this is they seem to be in the red here. All right, so I think Creative Bug actually does have their sales were $297,000 and their expenses were a little bit less, so it seems like net $71,000. JOANN Store Support Center, they've got net income of, all right, $11 million. JOANN.com, all right, no sales because they did end the online sales before the actual physical stores went out of business. All right, they've got some expenses. All right, is this negative? I think this is negative $1.8 million. And all right, JOANN stores, the regular stores, sales $167 million. Cost of goods sold $139 million, I believe. I'm not sure if this is just for that month or maybe it's like just per, I don't know if this is like, this can't be for the month, right? This has to be for a longer period of time, but this might be the latest information. All right, got selling, general, and administrative expenses, $176 million. Depreciation and amortization, $670,000. Looks like this is, I believe this is a negative $148 million. All right, here's some receipts of how much cash they have. So they cash, all right, $106 million. Ditto Patterns, $198,000. And all right, here's some bank accounts they've got. Bank balances. Okay, so here's the bank balances. Okay. So you can see, yeah, all right, JOANN stores. Yeah, so here's all the money. Here's all the money JOANN's has as of May 2025. All right, this, we got to go over this. So it's payments made to professionals. check it out. Kirkland & Ellis, this is the firm handling the bankruptcy. JOANN has paid Kirkland & Ellis a total of $6.5 million. Alvarez & Marshall, what do you say? This is the firm that hired Michael Prendergast and Jeff Dwyer, the interim CEO and CFO, who are now named as defendants in this vendor's lawsuit. They've been paid a total of $3.2 million. Kroll, I believe that's another firm that's handling some of the bankruptcy stuff. They paid them $2.5 million. And I believe these last four firms are law firms. So yeah, they have paid a total of $13.8 million to these firms, law firms, this business consulting firm, Alvarez & Marshall. So that's how much they've paid out to these firms, is $13.8 million. Just saying, kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. All right, so what was on the court agenda today? I'm going to be real. This is getting kind of boring. I'm going to try to make it as exciting as I can, but it's still not that exciting. It was going over lease objections. So there were a couple landlords that are objecting to the lease assignments that JOANN is making. And one of the companies that wants to take over some of the JOANN leases is Burlington, And when I was a kid, it was always like Burlington Coat Factor. I guess they dropped the Coat Factory, and now it's just Burlington. So this particular court hearing, if you're watching this at a later date, the hearing was on June 23rd, 2023. And it is before the Honorable Judge Craig T. Goldblatt. And we're going to talk about Judge Goldblatt because he's a real trooper. And this is in federal court, so there's no cameras allowed. I was able to listen in on it. And we're going to play a couple clips. So really the bank, I know all the stores are closed and everything. This is probably going to stretch on for several more months. There's also something called a confirmation hearing next month that I'm going to try to sit in on as well. So basically, there are some, much like that last hearing where the landlord had an issue with a Dollar Tree moving into a former JOANN's location. This lease situation involves a landlord in Asheville, North Carolina, and the JOANN in Burlington. So they were just going over, and here's the thing. It seems like, to me, like these landlords almost want Judge Goldblatt to be, to kind of validate their decisions or something. So I think, my personal opinion, I think Judge Goldblatt, Judge Craig, I think he's kind of over this whole thing. He seemed a little bit frustrated at parts, and I'm gonna play you some clips of that in a bit. But he kind of was telling these landlords and then the retailers, you guys figure this out. We don't need to be doing this in bankruptcy court. And he kind of seemed to be telling them, this is not the place for you to be dealing with your lease term squabbles. This is, he's like, I can grant the motion that this, lease assignment can go ahead, but it shouldn't be based on me making a decision about the terms of the lease and whether it's going to be violated or not. All right, so today's shopping center in question, I think it's called Overlook Village. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, Overlook Village Asheville LLC is the landlord. And we're going to take a look at the map. This is the shopping center in question for this particular court hearing. And this was sort of the main issue that they were going over. So this is a former JOANN location at 80 South Tunnel Road, Suite 30 in Asheville, North Carolina. So this is the former location. You can see what's around it. All right, there's a Five Below variety store, home goods, a nail spa and salon, a hand and stone massage and facial spa, Spectrum store, I think it's the cable internet service, Ross Dress for Less. So Burlington wants to move into this location, and they would be next to Home Goods, and they would be next to, all right, there might be another location here. Okay, there's an Amazon locker. I know, real exciting stuff. India Garden Restaurant. All right, this one might be empty. So the point of contention for this particular lease situation is that this shopping center, and notice there's no Trader Joe's in this one, guys. No Trader Joe's. But there is a Whole Foods in the like adjacent building. So the point of contention was that there is a lease restriction that this landlord does not allow off-price retail. Yeah, off-price retail in off-price retail exceeding a 15,000 square foot area. I'm not joking. Like, it's that minute of a detail. So apparently this store location may be, like, I guess bigger than 15,000 square feet. So the landlord was saying, hey, if the landlord, they didn't even really have an issue with it. They were saying that Ross Dress for Less, a couple doors down, would have a problem with this lease. But they have, like, Ross Dress for Less, from what I understand, didn't even have any issues with it at this time. There was actually a lawyer for Burlington on this Zoom, and she was saying that when Burlington plans to move into the space, they are going to have a floor plan so that the retail space does not exceed the 15,000 square feet, you know, because they're an off-price, I guess, like, discount retailer. So they were even saying, hey, we're going to work within the terms of this lease so that we don't violate that 15,000 square feet. I know you're like, this is really freaking silly, and it kind of is. So nobody was really objecting, but the landlord was like, hey, Ross Dress for Less, like, might have a problem with it, I guess. So at one point the judge, like, was like, hey, he was like, to paraphrase, he was like, if nobody's objecting to this, and he's like, you don't have a problem with this, why am I doing this? He's like, I'll grant the motion, but it's not based on, like, what particular floor plan Burlington has. And he's like, I'm not going to go over floor plans for a different business that's not even involved in this bankruptcy, really. You can kind of tell, I think he seemed a little exasperated. That's been sort of his theme. So I want to play you a couple clips. These are some highlights from Judge Craig.
The landlord has a clause in its lease with the debtors that prohibits the debtor or anyone else operating in that space from operating or selling off-price retail goods that exceeds in a space in excess of 15,000 square feet of the leasable space of this premises. And so we had that restriction, more or less. And then Burlington, as everyone I think agrees, is an off-price retailer. In fact, it's even mentioned as the type of tenant that would be prohibited from going above the 15,000 square feet. Mm-hmm. In addition, then we have another tenant at this location, Ross Dress for Less, which was a prior in time lease. So it was from 2003, I believe. And they had the same provision that prevents us from taking any action whatsoever. And if we do, there's additional provisions that they can terminate the lease or pay a substantially reduced rent.
As I understand the record before me, Burlington has agreed to abide by the restriction and use off price for no more than 15,000 square feet and therefore conform with the restrictions in the existing lease. Do I have that within a stone's throw of correct?
I believe that that's correct. So since we filed the objection, they did contact us and they did submit the declaration of Jeff Morrow, and it has a floor plan that appears to be compliant. So that's all great and good and well. I think that my client believes that because of the language in both this debtor's lease and in the Ross Dress for Less lease, it feels the need to press its objection, mostly because of the fact that there are severe financial consequences if it is deemed to be taking any action that would permit somebody to exceed the $15,000 restriction.
Okay.
So,
but they either are or they aren't looking to exceed the 15,000 square foot limitation. And if they are, they've got a problem. And they tell me they aren't. And I understand you need to make a record. But I take it, do you take issue with the representation that they will abide by the restriction?
Right.
Such that I can approve it.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. First, I want to thank you for allowing me to appear remotely. This is Christy Bagueto on behalf of Burlington. I just wanted to jump in just very quickly to note that the schematic that we prepared is an illustration, and we believe that there are a number of different ways that we can comply with the square footage restriction. And so we just don't want to be limited to that specific layout.
Right. So my suggestion, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm not at all suggesting that I enter an order that tells you exactly what the layout of the retail space look like, simply that the order authorizes the assignment subject to the requirement that the existing restrictions be honored. I think that's all it needs to say. I mean, again, I don't want to wordsmith it. I'm happy to let the parties work through that, but I'm not at all suggesting that the order dictate the which clothing racks go where.
No issues on our part.
Okay, so Mr. Riley, is there any reason why you can't work with Burlington and the objecting party to submit an order that reflects that point?
No, Your Honor, there's no reason at all. We'll connect with parties after the hearing and work on language, and it may be as simple as set forth the record of the hearing or something simple and submit an order under certification.
Okay, this is unusual. In my view is that I resolve the objection that the parties bring me, and whether Ross would or wouldn't have standing to object is an interesting question, but they haven't sought to raise an objection themselves. I'm not here purporting to resolve a dispute between the landlord and Ross. Those are both non-debtor parties, and that isn't in front of me. What I've got is a piece of paper by a landlord who says it doesn't object. Based on that, I'm inclined to grant the motion. And I'm not sure how much good that does anyone in collateral disputes, but I'm here to resolve the disputes in front of me, not other disputes between non-debtor parties that may or may not be implicated by the relief that I'm asked to enter. So in the absence of an objecting party who's actually pressing an objection, and I don't think I have such a thing, I'm going to enter the order. And I appreciate that doesn't give as much global protection as one might want, but I think I've got to sort of stay within my lane and resolve things that are in front of me and not reach out to resolve things that aren't in front of me. So appreciating that this isn't, from the landlord's perspective, the get out of jail free card it might want, I will grant the motion and overrule the objection on the ground that the objection, frankly, isn't being pressed. So I'm happy to go ahead and enter the order on that understanding.
So what does everybody think? Am I crazy, or does the judge seem a little bit frustrated that these hearings keep amounting to these like small squabbles about lease issues, and they're not even really issues because the landlord is like, oh, well, this other tenant might have a problem with it, but they haven't come forward with anything yet. It's like, really? So that was my impression, was that he was like, you guys, like come on here. So there is going to be another hearing. There might be a little bit more action at this next one, so I'll keep everybody posted. The other thing, this was not specifically discussed at the hearing, but I did notice there was some paperwork filed. SVP Sewing Brands, this is SVP Worldwide, the sewing machine giant that includes Singer, Husqvarna Viking, and Pfaff machines. They're purchasing the Ditto Pattern Projector intellectual property. So this, this is going through. So they haven't said they're buying anything physical, just all the digital stuff. So here is the order for that. Now, tuck this into your brain because this is going to come up in my next video. So here is the purchase agreement and whatnot. And here, here's the filing, and then this is the actual purchase and sale agreement. So it says they're buying, and again, this is for the Ditto Pattern Projector stuff. They're buying social media accounts, all software, product assets and data, all customer subscription data, books and records, including financial, operational, and legal documents, contracts to which Ditto or JOANN are a party, subscription revenue, payment gateway accounts, goodwill associated with the assets. So they're making it official. Singer, parent company, SVP Worldwide, is acquiring everything related to the Ditto Pattern Projector. So if you purchased one, which by the way, we're going to look at this because I noticed that they have now, after, I know I mentioned this in a previous video that I thought Singer had marked, like they had the Ditto Pattern Projector priced at like $499. And we were talking about how that was a little bit, like odd after everyone was paying like $90 for it at the JOANN sale. So I have noticed they have a new price now on the website. So currently, again, as of June 2025, the Singer Ditto Pattern Projector, now, and notice now it just says Singer on it, it's now marked at $199.99. So if you're thinking about it, also it says free shipping. So if you are thinking about it, it does look like the Ditto Pattern Projector is not going anywhere for now. At this price, I actually don't think that's a terrible price for it. I do have one. I have not opened it yet. I don't think that's terrible. So I'll link it in the description box if you're interested, you want to check it out. It is an affiliate link. This is not sponsored for sure, but I do use some affiliate links in the description box. But if you've been eyeing it, I don't think that's a bad price. I know there is always a risk of it going away, but at that price, like you at least still get like the cutting mat and like the physical stuff. So this is what it comes with. You get a cutting mat, you get pattern weights, all like the projector thing. I guess you get a rotary cutter. So, it's sticking around at least for now. So I just thought I'd let everybody know. I noticed because before, like a couple weeks ago, this was priced around $500. And they have dropped the price like a rock. So I think that's pretty interesting. So that is basically the latest roundup on everything related to the JOANN Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I know all the stores are gone. The website's gone. Well, the website's been sold to Michael's. So I'll keep everybody posted on the latest. If you did find this helpful, subscribe to Sewing Report Live. You can also shop my Etsy. It is sewingreport.etsy.com. We'll pull this up real quick. I really appreciate everyone watching, everyone leaving comments, and I appreciate all of you. Because here's the thing. After doing this type of content, yes, this is my Etsy shop where you can find personally curated fabrics, sewing supplies. I offer free shipping within the United States on orders of $35 or more. So I'll be real with you. Doing this type of content, I'm not really gonna get a lot of sponsorship offers. Definitely not from these companies doing this type of independent reporting. So if you subscribe, that helps me out. Shopping the Etsy helps me out. Even just watching, liking the video, commenting, that also, that does something. So I just want to thank you all for the support because, again, it's kind of hard to... I know on my other channel, I do more, stuff with like products and whatnot, but I don't really do sponsorships just because, and I mentioned this, I leave a pinned comment in every video. Every time you do a sponsorship or any sort of brand deal, they're going to ask you to sign a non-disparagement clause, which means I can never say anything bad about that company. And of course, I do report a lot on these companies, and I really can't do that. So I appreciate all of you. If you leave a comment, let me know what you think about these latest developments from court. Make sure to follow the community rules, and I will see you again in the next one. I'm Jen with Sewing Report Live.